I'm glad that Reports for Officers 2 was pulled off the consent agenda. I wanted it off because I wanted those who were still left on the commission who voted for the original project know exactly what they voted for, and for them to have to admit that the lies of the no city funding needed for the improvements as told to us 3 years ago by the parties pushing for the Winona Park remodel were just that. They never really had the money ready for the rest of the improvements, and now the lack of funding from a canceled summer season, it's going to get worse, unfortunately, and the city's now having to pick up the slack. And people are going to have to reckon with that, and if they're going to go ahead with this update to the bathrooms, and it didn't specify in the packet that I saw which bathrooms these were, so I'm not sure if this is improving the ones that are already in the pavilion or finally fixing the ones in the other section that I thought were going to be torn down. So whatever that is, it needs to be codified that it was not going to be wholly paid for by non-city funds. The next thing is about the budget. The packet was only released about 5 hours before the meeting, and it's not a good attempt at transparency in this city. Considering it wasn't shown what parts of the packet were going to be gone over during the earlier finance meeting, trying to scour through 200 pages in less than 5 hours is unacceptable. We had no clue in the public which portions were going to be done or whether it's just going to be a bolt through everything. So I got to page like 73, but that's 5 hours of me going through and looking at stuff. There's notes I have and things I have ready, but we didn't go over that part today, so I hope that it's tomorrow and that I can get on after I get out of work. If commissioners didn't get that packet till the same time, then that's, I consider, inexcusable, because the commissioners should be able to get a good look at it and get told what actually is being done for that meeting that evening, and 5 hours is not much time. If the commissioners did have it significantly earlier, then that's unacceptable for the transparency side of it, because the citizens already of this city don't have a great deal of trust in city government, and just another slap in the face. Onto the bridges, something I did see, and something that I found was missing, was the UEP agreement. During the extension for the 30-day transition, extra days for the transition period, it was noted that there would be a new document or approval coming through sometime in the month of May from UEP that was going to go on the agenda, and there's nothing there. I'm not sure what happened to it, and I don't exactly remember what it was, but I do remember there was supposed to be something in May that was supposed to come up, and nothing's come up for the bridges. Last real point I have is I saw something for the Historic District on the east side. They were going to be offering some virtual class that was originally going to be in person as a workshop, and now it's going to be a virtual class. It costs about $150. I just want to make sure that all residents inside of the Historic District got that offer, and that those that aren't able to afford it, because that is, once you get off of center, the average income of the people who live in those houses drops considerably, unfortunately, that those people are able to get assistance to attend that class if they would like to. A lot of areas in the Historic District outside of the main stretch need a lot of help, and unfortunately it seems that the help only goes to the same areas, and I'm hoping that this workshop for people can be used for those who haven't been able to get help recently. So those are the things that I have today, and hopefully tomorrow's commission meeting or finance meeting there'll be more, but that's all I have for today. So now that the meeting's over, some things from the budget that I've seen so far, I've only gotten through about 73 pages of 230 or 228 when you consider the blank pages in front of the document. I don't find that very transparent at all. They could have done a lot better, and they should have done a lot better. But from what I've gotten, I have so far 24 notes, and just list these off. $297,000 of increased tax collection from last year, $86,000 of increased Michigan revenue sharing. The total budget is up by $88,457. They're expecting a per year property loss since 2009 of $1.8 million, which that means that the money they collected in 2009's fiscal year versus the money they're collecting now, they're saying that they've lost on average $1.8 million per year since then. Meanwhile, for the state, they're saying that the loss has been about $218,000 a year. So they're saying after inflation that the city is down about $2 million in operating revenues they get from the state and from the city taxpayers each year. It's not that great. That's a lot of money, actually. So far, electric budget has gone up by 3.4%, or $1.36 million. Payments in lieu of taxes, which are essentially pieces of property that pay up front and don't pay actual taxes. Instead, the trade-off for that is $2.3 million this year, which is down about $650,000. Water utility budget, if you caught the first meeting, you've noted that that's up about 7.8%. With that change, that is a increase in water rates for city customers. Saying 13 cents per cubic unit. Average house would be about 91 cents a month increase. Now, the city's story is that the water plant that they built for the county and for all the townships and for other groups that want to latch onto it, that's up by Tawas, that the overall group voted to increase the rates for water collected this year. Now, they're also saying that they voted no, but they're overwhelmed by the rest of the system, which the city's population is about a third of the county. They got about a third of the votes for the items that are on their agenda for the Bay Water Group. And they're saying they got overrun this year. Last year they got away with it, but this year they voted to put it in. The other explanation is that the reason the water rates are higher in the city is because of both old infrastructure in the city, which is true. We do have some oak-lined water mains, and so those are more expensive to maintain. Plus, a lot of the townships have been using their funds that they get from the state to subsidize the water rate for their customers. So if you live in a township in Bay City and your water rate is that much lower, part of that is because your township is covering the cost between the amount that the county water group is charging and what you're being paid. So the difference there is being paid. And that is somewhat true. I do believe that the old infrastructure that we're paying for as a city, I'm almost positive some of it is not used by the city. The city is paying for infrastructure they put out back almost 100 years ago, maybe longer, that they got put out there in hopes of absorbing portions of the county as the city was growing. And when the city puts on infrastructure, they pay for that infrastructure until it's gone. Well, the townships haven't replaced that infrastructure, but because it's originally city infrastructure, the city pays for it even if the city isn't using it. And that slight disconnect is causing problems. Now, a lot of the costs are actually in the city. There's very few cases of that outside the city limits anymore. One big one that they mentioned a couple of years ago was the major water main that went out to the original plant that is, that way in my room here, but it's to the north from Henry, Upstate Park Drive. That goes out to the original water plant at the end of the curve where State Park starts. And that section of pipe is really old, ancient actually, and the city is still paying upkeep, was still paying upkeep on that. I don't know if that's still the case, but that was the case at the time. Sewer budget sees a minuscule decrease of 0.4% usage. The note is that they were also working on setting up a off-site refuse location. So some townships with their agreements with Waste Management or Republic, they have drop-offs. So you can go drive up to a drop-off with your truck full of crap from the week or from the month or however you have it set up with your township. And instead of having a barrel out every week or every couple of weeks, depending on your agreement again, then you can just dump it whenever you want. Or you get a coupon with how many you get in a month. And those would allow you to do your waste collection. You can do increased waste collection generally over a barrel. The city's working on a system for that now and trying to figure out a location. They will also increase the amount of e-waste we can get rid of as a city. A lot of e-waste can't go in regular recycling, and it's not supposed to go in the trash. So they're now going to start allowing it to go to this other location. There's no details on that yet, but hopefully they can get some more details as they start explaining more of that and what the actual idea is. There are four major projects listed between electric, water, and sewer that will also be in the major roads once I get there. That would increase the amount of, or that take almost $4 million out of this year's budget. Lafayette Bridge, it said, for 2021, which doesn't make sense why that's still there, considering Lafayette Bridge is now not being redone. MDOT decided it's not going to redo Lafayette Bridge. Johnson Street. Now, I asked for some qualifications on what Johnson Street said because it didn't specify, and it turns out it's going to be Johnson Street from Woodside north toward the GM plant. North of the GM plant, that is old, but it's not used very much. The plus side of all this $4 million is that a lot is being paid for by the Marquette Area Tax Incremental Fund. And that area is, what I originally thought was the Marquette area was just on the west side in the banks along Marquette Avenue, actually covers part of the east side, or at least they're allowing their funds to be on the east side there by the plant. That'll be good for that area. It's just going to be an interesting project. The other one is along Marquette itself, so that's probably the kicker. They could do Johnson the one year, and then do the outside of the river the next, so I'm guessing there's a trade-off for that. And then phase 1 of Winona Avenue. Now, if you've been in Bay City for longer than about a month, you more than likely have traveled on Winona Avenue. It's bad. It's been bad for at least 15 years, like really bad for at least 15 years. And they've gotten so bad that they just tar and pitch parts of it and let the potholes go. Well, now there's part of the money going to that. They have money set aside to actually fix it. And that'll be going from Ionia all the way up to the edge of city limits, so North Union. That'll be done in multiple years. And it will be interesting to see what they do, because that road is literally collapsing down. Like, if you walk down Winona, down by Holy Trinity, or whatever the heck they call themselves now, you can see that the road is actually sinking, and the curve is sinking with it. And the steepness of the outline between the sidewalk and the street is getting quite bad. And that's been going on for decades, and now they're finally going to get fixing that. Now, they didn't say what side they're going to start on. My guess is they're going to start up by North Union, because they just fixed North Union, North, and North in cooperation with Bangor Township the last couple of years on Winona to replace that section of water main. So my guess is they're going to start there on that new connection and then go forward until they come down to Ionia. So it'll be a few years for that project. They're saying 3 years total, but hopefully it'll fix a lot of problems, and hopefully it is a nice road for at least more than 3 months out of the year. It's kind of difficult to read the budget. I'll try to put it up on the screen here, but pages 19 through 30, everything was double-sided. So you had half the budget on one page for the department totals, and you had half of it on the other. They put it side by side, and it's really hard to read in up on screen. Question I have for the one small one is for parking enforcement. That says it's funded mostly by local grants, not listed who its grantee is, for about $40,000. Then we get to what other is. Other services. The general fund itself has $4 million and it lists as other services. And these can be harmless things that cover various miscellaneous costs throughout the year, but they exclude personnel, fringe benefits for personnel, so like city health insurance allowance, or help, or retirement match from the city if there is one in their contracts, or gym, phone, and car allowances for certain members of city staff that qualify for that. And there's different qualifiers for each department, for each level of the department. There's different things there. Some I don't know if we really need or should have, but most of those costs are pretty small, and that's in fringes. So you have salaries, fringes, operations, and other. Other is a large category. You can never really get a straight answer, or at least I never get a straight answer until I've been doing this, of what other actually covers. And when I get into it, and I saw the journal ledger account from last year, it still didn't make much sense of what other actually covers. But there's $4 million just in the general fund that's going toward these other services. Bridge Time. Basically loves the bridges. They just absolutely love them. They love that we sold them for $5 million, and we're going to be told on them in a few years. But just so you know, we sold them last year technically, for $5 million. We were supposed to get a $5 million check, and after 90 days, which turned to 120 days because of a request, we're supposed to hand them off wholly to UBP, and the city's supposed to wipe their hands of it and not have any more involvement. Well, in the 2021 budget, which starts July 1st in theory, the city still has $480,000 of expenses going towards those bridges. They're not supposed to be there anymore. They're supposed to be gone, and we're still paying for them. I don't know why. I have no idea why. The agreement was supposed to be that we no longer have to pay anything for the bridges. UP takes full possession, full responsibility for costs. and we're still paying $480,000 this year. I don't understand, and I haven't been able to get far enough in it to try to find why. And 73 pages out of 230. There's nothing in there yet. There's possibly something farther, but there's nothing there yet. For non-general funds, so for all the other stuff, so that's major roads, side streets, the bridges themselves, all of the major infrastructure, so water, sewer, power, water, sewer, and power, yeah, that's right, waste collection, and all that fun stuff in that. But there's $48.5 million of marked as other services. I don't understand. I really don't. There's also no revenue mark for Indy Bridge. That's where I stopped, was at 73, is for Indy Bridge's sheet for the year. Compares 2018-19, 2019-20, and the 2020-2021 budget, which is the new one. That $5 million is not there, and I have not seen it yet. City budget only increased by like $8,000. Where's that $5 million? They said they have a check. I don't know what that $5 million is. And then during the meeting, it was mentioned about lead services. They just sent an application for a loan for $2 million for lead service replacement. I thought they were farther along in the process, but at this point they haven't said so. So they're saying that they're not there yet, and it's going to that they only have $120,000 to work with for lead abatement throughout the city. $120,000 isn't a lot for them. Even at even at $2 million a year, that's not going to get you very far. That's going to fix the problem in the 20-year window that the state's giving you, but that's not very far. So hopefully that comes through, and this $120,000 is nothing. But so far there's only $120,000. There's another meeting tomorrow at 5:30. Hopefully I can get on to 5:30. And we'll go from there. So, thanks everybody.